Welcome to the Current Affairs Taiwan Han 666 Recall Special. I'm Donovan Smith, and joining me today is Sean Su, a longtime political organizer, part of the group that occupied the legislature in what was later termed the Sunflower Movement, where he was part of the international communications team, and today, Kaohsiung voter. Welcome to the program.
Hey, hi everyone.
All right, let me quickly recap what happened and then let's dive in. Today, the recall vote to oust Kaohsiung Mayor Kuo-Yu was a total blowout. To pass, 25% of the electorate needed to vote yes. The final result was nearly 41% of the electorate voting yes, with the total number of voters voting him out topping the number who voted him in 2018 by nearly 50,000. This is the first time a recall vote has been successful, and I believe Han is the only person to have had to face two recall votes in his lifetime. Now, officially, the results will be certified on June 12th, and then the central government will appoint an interim mayor. Han has 15 days to legally challenge the result, but a local media report today quoted him as saying he would respect the result. The government has 3 months to call an election, but I saw in a report in the Taipei Times that they're planning to call one in 30 days. So, Sean, what was the scene like on the ground today in Kaohsiung?
Well, as soon as I arrived, there was quite a lot of people waiting for taxis. There was a lot waiting for the subway system. So, and I'm coming down from Taipei. So definitely there were quite a few people who are registered in Kaohsiung, but may reside elsewhere or in another city. But if they have their registration or household registration set up in Kaohsiung, then they would probably come by and vote.
But wait, wasn't Han Kuo-Yu supposed to bring all you people back down to Kaohsiung? That was what he got elected as mayor for.
Well, let's put it this way. Whenever I get to down to Kaohsiung, the first thing I do is I rent a scooter. And it was raining pretty hard today, but let's just say on my way to the voting booth, I almost crashed because I hit a pretty deep pothole.
Oh.
And that was one of the things he claimed that he had fixed. And then after I, crawled out of that gaping giant crater, I went to the voting booth. Now I do know most of the voters voted during the morning, so that's why every time I always arrive, it's basically empty. I just came in, they just took my information, I tossed in my ballot, and that was that. It was really fast.
So, did you see any of the Bamboo Union guys that people were that they were rumored to show up?
Actually, no. But what I did see was a lot of cops outside.
Yeah.
So I felt very safe. Like there was no way anything wrong was going to happen. And they had stationed a couple of security guards inside, and they had stationed 3 or 4 cops outside. And there probably were more during the morning. Again, I only got there during the afternoon. However, it made me think that maybe it was something they said to try to drive people away from voting. They didn't have to act on the threat. Just the idea that it could be unsafe was enough for one of my partner's relatives to inquire and ask if I would be safe, to watch out, and if I saw something wrong, to quickly run away because my life is more important than this recall, they would say. But I didn't think anything was going to happen, and nothing did as far as I saw.
Okay. So, I mean, you went to the rally, right?
Yes, I went to the rally. I did not go to the Han rally. In the past, I would usually try to drive by and visit, but I did get by several. One of them, I did pass by the state building headquarters, the state building party on the way there. It's not, and they had actually, I think, coalesced at the rally with the We Care Kaohsiung recall headquarters. I went there and there was quite a lot of people. Not too long after I got there, it became, and this was only about an hour and a half, 2 hours after the election, the close of the election, which was at 4 p.m., that everyone was really cheering because pretty quick, the ballots were just completely obvious that they passed the threshold and that overwhelmingly, they voted against Han. I just got to my hotel right now, so I think, what was the number? Do you remember what was the official end tally of it?
900 and some odd thousand. 939 or something like that.
Yeah, versus
actually, here I can check. 939,090 votes.
Wow. Okay. Versus, I think last I saw was something like 24,000 votes for.
Yeah.
So this was more than a landslide. It was a crushing defeat.
Yeah, it was something like 8 892,000, I think, is what voted him in the first place. So that's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, I think it was there was some analysis by Kat Thomas who wrote this great piece. I think how the real reason why, because it didn't make sense why the KMT would try to strategize by telling people to not vote or Han's followers to not vote in this recall. And I think was it you or somebody came up with this idea that maybe it's because he wants to soften the blow by making some excuses on the loss and everything. I do think he will use the excuse by saying that since I told my followers not to vote, therefore this loss isn't as bad as it really is. If they had voted for me, it would have been way more even. That's what I think he will say from now.
Yeah, I did a show right after, like the day after he released that video, and I pointed out a few things. That was one of them. Another one is it keeps trouble down, no violence between his followers. And then also, he was trying to sort of keep up his image of being, amongst his followers at least, of sort of being above politics and that sort of thing. But yeah, one of the things I mentioned was, well, and I've seen some other analysts. I think Kat is one of them. I think Eric Michael Smith is another one who talked about that. Yeah, it was also so to soften the blow.
The crowd at the rally, even though they were very boisterous and they were very happy and they kept cheering as the numbers went on. Actually, people were hoping 1 million people would vote out Han Kuo-Yu. But one of the things is that they kept repeating over and over again that one shouldn't gloat if you have a fellow Han supporter in your family, be respectful, understand their position, be nice, enjoy this moment, but don't rub it in their faces. There's no reason to do that. And I thought that was actually a very nice thing to do and a smart strategy too.
Yeah, I saw it very specifically in the victory speech. They said specifically, the translator, because they had English and Chinese. I would have translated it differently, but the way that they had the English there was, you said, if you have people who disagree with you politically, hug them.
Yeah.
I think embrace would have been a better word choice, but the word could be translated either way.
You could just imagine people just chasing after Han supporters, trying to give them hugs on the street. Even Han himself, like, come on, just a whole huge mob giving it. No.
That's why I think embrace would have been a better translation for the word, because that could be literal or figurative, and I think that's kind of what he meant. But anyway, I thought the English translation was pretty funny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think they did a pretty good job, all considering. It was, all in all, I think everything was rather well organized. In terms of the recall Han movement, I think their branding was something, but that's a whole other topic. I feel that their branding and everything related to that was very on point. But one thing as an aside that I wanted to bring up is that they had several stalls that were selling LGBT stuff. Well, of course, there's, the DPP was in support of this recall. So there were people who supported the DPP with stands there. And one of the things I noticed was that they had a lot of like collectibles or stuff that you could show off, like tags, keychains, wrists, buttons, wrist straps, etc., etc. And I had noticed in my time there that one of the best-selling items were not necessarily the recall items, but actually the LGBT stuff. And I'm not sure why that is, but I also understand that a large majority of the Taiwanese people that did vote in the 2018 elections, especially in the referendum, did not support the LGBT movement. But here we have a recall that is against Han, who, by the way, during his mayoral election, literally shared a stage with anti-LGBT pastors and people. So maybe that's also a small but contributing factor. I myself picked up a few items, but I noticed that was one of the things that everyone seemed to be buying.
So that's actually a good segue for the next topic here. Is it really strikes me that this whole thing, and I may be writing an article for Ketagalan Media, maybe not. I'm still waiting for them to give me the go ahead here, but is that this is in a lot of ways it's a victory for youth activists over populism. It's very striking how, if you look at the stage, most of the people that were on the stage were pretty young. people who were the organizers of the whole thing, and you see all the news reports showing, all of the activists out collecting signatures, and they're all young people. So, whereas the whole hand wave, the whole hand phenomenon was largely fueled by people in the sort of 45 to 65 age range. But this whole thing and the recall was powered mostly by people, I think, under 40, under 45. What was your take when you were at the rally?
Well, usually I visit as all the rallies as much as I can, and what I do notice is that at KMT rallies they tend to have a lot of wheelchairs. It's, it's just it's just an army. It's just something I noticed. There
And
are
nurses spoon feeding them baby food, and yeah, right.
and actually, to be fair, there are young people that do show up at KMT rallies. There are,
Mhm.
but they're not part of leadership. And this is what
No.
people mean when they say the KMT has no youth. They mean that the KMT doesn't give any opportunities for their youth. So they don't really have any of them with power or really among their ranks. And I think this is reflective of what I saw today as well, which is the complete opposite, which was, yes, there were obvious officials there that were older. However, they were taking leadership from the youth, which I think is a stark
Mhm.
difference versus the KMT's approach, where senioritis or ageism or things like that matters more to them in their hierarchy. Whereas in the recall, yeah, I did notice a lot of. But going back a little bit to what I saw was being sold, a lot of the items purchased were not just from people who are clearly LGBT, but some of those items were actually purchased by people who don't fit the demographic at all. And I mean older people. I saw one woman, I noticed she was wearing a cross around as a necklace, but she had brought a rainbow LGBT, pride bracelet. So that's why I was really shocked. So I think, but I do.
Did she know for sure? Are you sure that she knew what she was buying?
Oh, I would love to see the face of her pastor when she brings it in, depending on which church it is. Like, hi, check out this beautiful bracelet I brought during the recall rally today. But
Yeah,
I think
she probably did know. I'm just joking.
I think she did know, but I also would entertain the idea if she didn't. That said, like I said, one of the biggest differences I do see is that there is more, leeway being given to youth. I do think the Democratic Progressive Party and other parties are becoming more aware that if they don't do this now, they will, I think the KMT has taught them a good lesson on what happens if you don't do that.
Mhm.
So that's my feeling about that. And I also feel that, like I was saying, like their branding, the designs were really on point. People were buying the recall hats. I personally think they're beautifully designed. It just shows that the youth are they know how to really appeal and get the word out and get that design out and just make it seem not only something that you want to feel passionate about, but also that you feel it's actually something cool. Their shirts and stuff were things that I saw people wearing casually. It isn't something that people, will just wear just for this rally. It's very clear that hat, by the way, that they designed is something that actually looks good. Not like a MAGA hat, but like streetwear. So it's very contemporary in that aspect.
Well, something that I find really, I think that I find really striking about Taiwanese youth, and I feel like this has really shown up in this, but also you could see it in the Sunflower Movement and in other movements, including the movement for marriage equality. But is that Taiwanese youth are very, very strong on democracy and responsible democracy. And so it's really interesting. I think about this hand recall that was the whole campaign was basically driven by young people, and what they were trying to defeat was populist politics, which is not exactly the demo the you know the this is not exactly what you see in other countries necessarily. I feel like this was a very strong blow against populism, and this was kind of a youth rebellion against populist politics, which is really something that it would be interesting to see play out in other countries. But so possibly, I mean, Taiwan something of a bellwether or a model for this going forward. I mean, what's your take on that?
I would use somewhat different wording. I would say instead of populism, in terms of being, ideas that might be popular towards people, or perhaps even progressivism, I would say it's more like dishonest demagoguery. Han Kuo-Yu had lost a lot of supporters because of dishonest demagoguery. Like, he is a demagogue. He does say a lot of things that he thinks, people will have sentiment with. But another thing that's really hard to take is his attitude. One could remember that he kept mentioning that he didn't want to get too much into politics. He just wanted to run the city. But we all remember what happened shortly after he was elected. I think it was like the very next day. He mentioned a couple of things regarding identity politics, the 92 consensus, so on and so on. And I do think that youth are they're easily, I wouldn't use the word triggered. I would say they're very sensitive towards people who act like that. Like I said, dishonest demagogues. If they, him about all his promises about, let's say, bringing Disney over, bringing F1 racing, bringing all sorts of things. The the sex hotel merry-go-round, that one, for instance, he just seems really out of touch. And I get it. I get why, youth will rise
Ferris
up
wheel,
against
not merry-go-round.
it.
But merry-go-round would be even funnier.
I'm really tired right now, but yes, it would be more funny if it was a merry-go-round. Everyone riding a horse instead of yes, I was thinking of a Ferris wheel, but yes, I accidentally said merry-go-round.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got a bunch of topics to cover, so I'm going to jump over to the Han and Chiang press conferences, which I know you were out, with the rallies and eyeing.
Yeah, could you tell me about that? That I wanted to hear about.
Yeah. Well, I thought this is very interesting. So after the recall result comes in, Han comes out and gives a press conference. And I was expecting something different, but he came out and his whole demeanor was almost defiant. And he talked about the achievements of his administration, which you could call defensive, but he delivered it in a way that sounded more like he was proud and defiant. He did thank the city for giving him an opportunity. He thanked his team. He talked about how hard they worked. And then, of course, he launched some attacks on the government and the press, and how the press and all the netizens were against him. And so it was a kind of, it was not at all, he didn't look at all defeated. He didn't act defeated. He didn't look humble. He didn't look, and this is really weird because, of course, a lot of the appeal that he's had in the past was he tries to portray himself as a humble man of the people. And he didn't do that at all in this press conference. And so I found that very interesting because I thought that he would take a little bit more of a humble approach for his followers, like he did in the videos that he came out with. Because he came out with another video last night, I noticed, on Instagram, where again he was more humble and he was thankful, and for the opportunity. He was thankful for his team and their hard work and all of that. But he didn't do that at the press conference. And then the Johnny Chiang press conference. Now he's of course the KMT chair, and he came out and he was flanked by a bunch of KMT heavyweights. It was a bunch of older guys, but he's only 48, and he was also joined there by Jiang Wanan, who's pretty young, the legislator. But the other guys were a bunch of old guys. And he came out, he was more humble. He kept his head down. He talked about how the party need to work. He did defend Han's administration's record, but basically the general tone, his demeanor, his body language was much more humble, and we have to work hard going forward kind of thing. So that's there was kind of a bit of a contrast there. But that's But that kind of leads us to the next topic, which is what is Han's future going forward?
No. Han does have a very long political career, despite, what the media used to say prior to 2018 and the 2018 elections. He wasn't just a humble vegetable seller. He was the man who assaulted former President Chen Shui-bian back when Chen Shui-bian was a legislator himself.
They were both legislators at the time. Yeah.
Yes, and he assaulted them. I mean, he was covered in many books as being in cahoots with triad members, and that a lot of triad members have supported him. So it's not like I think Han will go away. He will have a political. He has built a base. So even at this very moment, I personally think he's still quite powerful compared to his past, and he was still managed to crawl back somehow. And when he was acting, he was eating a little bit of humble pie earlier the last couple of days. There were some people, I think frozen garlic, who mentioned that, people were actually starting to buy it. So if he keeps this up a couple months or a couple years, who knows? He might be running for president again or something else. I don't think he's going to win.
Yeah.
It's not the last of Han, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a couple of things I find interesting. I think he's still on the Central Standing Committee of the KMT.
Yes.
And I don't think they're going to kick him out because he's just got too many followers.
Yes, that's why I think he's more powerful than he's ever been.
Yeah. And, well, no, I think he was at the peak of his power after he was elected, right when he was elected mayor of Kaohsiung.
Okay, yes, you're correct.
His support started to fade a few months into his being mayor. But the thing that I keep seeing, and we've actually talked about this here on Current Affairs Taiwan going back quite a while, actually, is that he might run for KMT chair. And just today, I took a look at, because I scan both English and Chinese language media, and I saw 2 or 3 articles in the local media that talked that had right in the headline, references to him possibly running for chair in May 2021. And so there's definitely a lot of speculation on that, and we know that he wants the position because he ran against Wu Duanyi before. So, I don't know if he'd be able to win, but it does seem there's an awful lot of speculation around him running for KMT chair in May 2021.
I think he will run. I don't know if he will win because historically the KMT doesn't really enjoy having enforcers of the KMT, traditionally speaking, to be part of their leadership. That is not. They're usually on the bottom of the totem pole. I don't think he's just gonna. I just don't think he's gonna win. But who knows? I mean, crazier things have happened in Taiwan politics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's possible there could be like a split primary or something like that, and he could come out on top. I think it's a long shot that he'd win it, but
agreed.
There were reports about him that tens of thousands of his followers joined the KMT prior to the presidential election, so it looked an awful lot like he was trying to pack the party with his supporters. How many of them will keep their membership by the time it rolls around May 2021 is another question, of course. But
don't they have to pay for that unless you're over a certain age, and then you don't, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not a KMT member, so but I do remember that the KMT was trying to get some of them to pay up because they need money right now. But
yeah, if you're above a certain age, you get it for free. If you can pay a one-off lifetime membership, and then but I think most people go for the monthly or yearly dues or however it works.
Given the age, I've seen a lot of Han's supporters during the past couple of years. I don't think half of them have to pay anything at all.
Well, he never actually did as well in the over 65 demographic, over 70 demographic. They're more suspicious of the KMT.
Oh, well, I did see quite a few of them at his rally, though. I don't know if they ended up voting for him, but they showed up for sure.
In the opinion polls, he was lower in the older demographic. It was kind of like that 45 to 65 where it was really strong. But people older than that remembered the White Terror and the martial law era in its darker phases. Let's move on here. What do you think this means for the KMT, this loss?
I just can't see how they thought they could win this one. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I mean, obviously, this is a blow. Johnny Chiang has just come in. He's only been in as chair for a fairly short time now, and this is a continued blow. This is the fourth largest city in the country, and sort of a bigger picture here is that when years ago I wrote a piece called "The Coming Collapse of the KMT," and I only got one thing wrong, I think, in that piece, and it created a big stir. But I said at the time, and this is 2015, I said, look, the party doesn't really have any big figures. And so I said they're going to struggle in the 2018 elections. Now, I don't feel too bad about getting that wrong, because right after that I said, unless, and basically I said, unless there's a popular bolt out of the blue that we don't know now, or Wang Jinping manages to unite the factions. And that's exactly what happened. Both of those things happened. So in 2018, the KMT had a golden opportunity to build a whole new, because all of their top figures were unpopular at this point. They had nobody who was popular nationally, outside of a few very local governments like the head of Nantou. I mean, not a national figure. So they had this golden opportunity to build some new stars for the party. So Han Kuo-Yu's crashed and burned. So they've lost that. Liu Xiaoyan just showed up at the bottom of an opinion poll for her administration, and second from the bottom personally in a recent local government poll. So, and the only star they've managed to cultivate really is Hou in New Taipei. So him losing this recall, I think, really it really kind of shows the KMT has some serious problems. So I think it's going to make it harder for the KMT to win back support. And it's also a defeat to a certain degree for Johnny Chiang, who wasn't able to do anything to stop it.
I don't think too many people will actually blame him for this loss.
I don't think they'll blame him enough that he has to resign. I don't think they'll blame him that much.
No, he's not. He's not going to resign. That's for sure. But I don't think he could have done anything to really save this. What I do think is going to happen is that either the KMT must accept Hou Yu,
Mm-hmm.
or they're going to be in for even rougher time. Hou Yu, I think, is popular enough and does have a background that is clean enough that he can revitalize the KMT, not back to what it formerly was, but he could make it sure that it's back on two legs again.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'm not sure if Johnny Chiang can do that. We'll see, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's working with both arms tied behind his back, is my opinion. You've got this hierarchy that is age old, and you have all these people who don't want change, and it feels like right now that they're willing to let the party even die than reform it. They're that stubborn. There's a lot of young people they should have just let through, but time and time again they sabotage them.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't see how. And Johnny Chiang himself is 2 years away from being 50, and he's considered the young in the KMT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've talked a lot about Johnny Chiang on Taiwan Report News Brief, I do really believe that he knows what the KMT needs to do. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think that. I think there's powerful forces within the party that just aren't going to let him do it.
No, I don't.
I mean,
think so.
they'll let him do this whole, redo the website and their online marketing and all that stuff, but without some big changes in what the party stands for, I don't think they're going to be electable on a national level. I mean, they continue to have some stars in the local level, but only Hou Yu is a national figure right now. That's
so far, yeah.
Yeah.
So, who do you think are going to chooses the interim mayor?
Oh, the DPP?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Because it looks like it's only going to be for a month or so. The safe choice would be Chen Zhu, who is, of course, the previous mayor. In the past, she's experienced, she's beloved, and she knows the job. But I don't think she wants to do it. She's got health issues. She's now, she's got a new job. So the other possibilities are choose Chen Chi-mai, which they might. He was the one who lost to Han Kuo-Yu. I think that would be a
Yeah.
bad choice. And the reason I say that is because if they put in the guy that lost to Han Kuo-Yu, it looks kind of spiteful. And there's a very good chance that he may run, which we'll get to that topic in a minute. But I think they might put him in, but I think it would be a bad choice. I think the best choice for the DPP would be to put in a young up and comer, someone that they want to give a national stage to, help build name
Lin
recognition.
Feifeng?
Yeah, exactly. Someone like Lin Feifeng.
Somebody like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's my
Plus,
tip.
if any mistake goes on, they're gonna blame. If Chen Chi-mai can't turn that boat around quickly
Mhm.
enough, they might just blame him as well.
Mhm.
So I do think you're on the money that the best strategy would be to choose somebody new to get his name out, and then in a year and a half hand it over to somebody else anyway, right?
Mhm.
Because they need to build that star power. The KMT is a very good example of what happens when you just stay static and you
Mhm.
don't change and you don't develop new personalities and new stars for your party. And that's something they're gonna. I'm not sure if the DPP is smart enough to know, but we'll find out in a couple of days.
Yes. We'll find out, I think, on June 12th, I think. Maybe they'll announce it before then.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be exciting times, right? Han can't run for 4 more years, so it's now down to after that who's going to be the candidate mayors for both parties.
Yeah. So Chen Chi-mai, who lost last time, but he's reasonably popular now in his role as vice premier. He has openly said that he's not that he hasn't ruled it out, which is often local political speech for I'm seriously considering it or I'm planning on doing it. But he hasn't announced. I don't see a whole lot of other big candidates for the DPP. They could try and bring in someone from another area. They could, in theory, run Lin Jialong, but I'm pretty sure Lin Jialong wants to take back Taichung.
Yes, he does.
And I'm not as clued in on local politics in Kaohsiung that I know of anybody who might be an up and comer from there. So I'm if I had to bet, it would probably be Chen Chi-mai. That would be my guess.
It is. I don't think it is the best move, but that's what I think will happen.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, or they could pick a young up and comer. I mean, he does have a pretty good job as vice premier, but
I honestly think they should just let him stay as vice premier, and your strategy sounds like the right thing to do.
another option does come to mind, and I'm totally flaking on his name right now. I know his name, tip of my tongue. The guy who is the DPP chair up until the inauguration. What's his name?
You mean, are you talking about a certain person who is good at fighting pandemics? Oh no, the DPP chair. I'm thinking of the vice
Yeah,
president.
the chair. Yeah. What was his name? Well, anyway, the DPP chair who was when Tsai stepped down after the 2018 election until this inauguration. That guy. So he might be a good candidate. But let's end on who do we think the candidate will be for the KMT? Got any thoughts there?
You mentioned a couple of like prior to the show,
Mhm.
we actually talked a little bit about several up and coming candidates. Which we discovered something really funny.
Mhm.
Justin Huang, I think, was one of
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
Eric Chu
Uh-huh.
as a possible. No, this isn't what you suggested. These were, being bandied about. I think
Yeah.
online, people are just considering these characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Li Sichuan, the current or soon to be ex vice mayor of Kaohsiung, he's been bandied about quite a bit. And Johnny Chiang himself has been bandied around a little bit. I've seen some other names thrown about, like Wu Duanyi, who has been mayor of Kaohsiung before, who would get killed in an election, in my opinion. Also, Wang Jinping, and I don't think he'll do it because and because I think he knows he'd lose, and though he is a Kaohsiunger,
Wang
he
is really. I don't think he can do it
no,
at
I
this
don't think
point.
so. I don't
And
think he'd want to
it's
either. I don't think
no,
that's the
he
job he
definitely
wants.
does not.
As for Justin, I think some we can kind of rule out. I don't think Johnny Chiang should do it. He's a popular legislator in Fengyuan in Taichung. Um, Easily won re-election there, and he's the KMT chair. I saw some of the speculation was suggesting that he should run because that would boost his profile more. I suppose that's an argument, but I think it would just be too distracting, and I think he's probably better off where he is as a legislator and KMT chair. Li Sichuan, the problem with him, and I've noticed this before, he's a bureaucrat. He's never been elected to anything before. He's one of these guys in the KMT who elected KMT officials appoint to high-ranking positions, essentially to help them out. And I've seen that dynamic play out here, where candidates they've tried to take them out of the bureaucracy and run them, and they're just not good candidates. So that could be a problem.
He's kind of boring, and they
Yeah.
keep grabbing him to be a deputy mayor, or like the second guy for all sorts of
Head
things.
of some
But
department, he's a
yes,
juzang for something. Yeah, so that leaves Eric Chu and Justin Huang. Now, Eric Chu, he's run for president before, and he's been the mayor of the largest city in the country. But the way he's talking, he doesn't seem to be ruling it out. But he was the mayor of New Taipei. So I really don't know if he would do it. I don't think he'd win. He's from out of town. But Justin Huang, I thought, was an interesting idea.
Justin Huang is an interesting idea. What I thought was even more interesting is that the fact that this guy is 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to his Chinese Wikipedia page, you see a 25-year-old's portrait there. It's been so photoshopped.
It's hilarious.
Someone used some sort of de-aging app, so it looks like he could be his grandchild. Because when you actually search for other pictures, they do Photoshop him heavily. And now, there's a thing where, apparently it says, from memory, I think it might have actually been from his campaign office, but that's a little bit ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't too far-fetched, because during the last two major elections, I've seen a lot of KMT candidates have somebody Photoshop them or de-age them so much
Mm-hmm.
that you would think the KMT is a party full of 20, 30-year-olds.
Yes,
But
and they do it even heavier. I noticed with the women candidates. I mean, they'll take 40 pounds off of them and de-age them by 20 years.
I think there's some sort of sexism involved
Well,
in that.
yeah, I mean,
they go way overboard.
I've seen that in the DPP as well. It's not just the KMT.
True.
But the KMT has older candidates. So it seems to be more obvious and more heavily
So they take
done.
it to another level.
It's like,
they take it to another level, because yes, I do know the DPP will do the usual, like photoshopping to make everyone look pretty. They'll remove wrinkles,
soft lens,
the usual stuff you do from a phone app. But the de-aging they've done here is something that Whataworks does. This is like watching Benjamin Button. Johnny, so when I first heard about Johnny, when I first heard about Justin Huang, I thought, he's a young up-and-comer from Taitung. So only to find out he's 60 years old, but okay.
Yeah.
And the thing I have about Justin Huang is that, being from Taitung and Hualien, and people like from politicians from there, the king of Hualien, right? He's
talked about him a lot on Taiwan Report News Brief. Yeah.
Oh, he wants to, I guess, run Hualien from a prison.
Yeah, he wants to be able to use video chat to attend in the Q&A sessions in the legislature. That's what he's trying to do. Yeah.
Not even pandemic related, but he'll just use Zoom or something to
from prison. Yeah.
Justin Huang has been to prison before too, as well.
But it looks like, I mean, it was a long time ago, and it looks like it was just sort of petty financial stuff. But I mean, I think politically he might be a good choice for the KMT because they just really don't have any stars. And where the few stars that they have are, and he was pretty popular. He was, reportedly fairly creative and did a pretty good job from everything I've heard about this guy. And, again, in Hualien, in Nantou, in Mazu, the KMT has popular local officials, but they have no national name recognition. So Justin Huang, this could be a way, whether he wins or not, this would be a way to give him a national platform. And so it would be a way to give him exposure, which right now, because they're starving for stars, basically. So that might politically make some sense.
All right. Yeah.
All right. We should probably wrap things up. It's been a long, exciting show.
All right.
So I'd like to remind everybody to hit like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And if you'd like to sponsor the program, PM me and make my day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This has been brought to you by the Taiwan Report. For more content like this, become our patron at report.tw.
哎呦，就是那个台湾狗啦，最喜欢我的台湾狗了。